because I felt like everybody else had the answer, but I didn't know what that was, but I knew that there was something. It's like I grew up with that feeling of both sides of self-doubt and also knowing absolutely that there was this bigger picture.
Magnificence is the boundless expanse of being, a liberation from limitation. It is the embodiment of authenticity, where you shed the shackles of self-doubt, shame, and imposter syndrome. Here, worthiness flourishes like a vibrant garden where you have the power to determine your actions, destinations, and your closest relationships. In the realm of magnificence, creative individuality takes center stage. Your greatness is acknowledged, celebrated, and nurtured. Gone are the days of mindless conformity or fitting in just to keep the peace. This show and your host, Patricia Lindner, are here to guide you as you align with your authentic design, leading the way to a life of purpose and fulfillment. Magnificence is not some unreachable peak or distant dream. It's inside you, waiting to shine brighter than you ever thought possible. Welcome to your magnificence.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Magnificence, the one and only empowerment podcast that strikes a match and shines the light on the magnificence of my guests and, of course, on your magnificence. And today I have with me the one and only and magnificent Laurie Seymour. Hello, Laurie. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Patricia. I'm excited to be here. We've had a couple of really amazing conversations, and so I know this will be too.
Yeah, I am excited and looking forward to diving in whatever comes up. I'm curious, and I trust that this is going to be an amazing unfolding of something that is exactly needed to be said today. Yeah.
It always is. That's what's so magnificent.
Yeah. I like trusting the flow. Absolutely. So before we dive into all of the good stuff, another part to that, another good stuff part is introducing you to the audience and just saying a couple of sentences about who you are and what you do. And should I not say everything that is very important for the introduction, please add whatever feels good to you. I just tried to put together what I thought is very interesting in the beginning.
Okay.
So today I'm really thrilled to introduce to you Laurie Seymour. She is a 2-time international #1 bestselling author, host of the Wisdom Talk radio podcast, and an executive coach. Laurie is the founder and CEO of the Baka Institute, dedicated to helping others connect with their energetic, creative intelligence. She calls it the source, to dissolve old patterns and unlock their full potential. With over 25 years of experience, Laurie has guided thousands in using a special energetic technology that activates a deep connection with source, raising vibration and enabling creation through the quantum field of potential. Her quantum connection process helps people build lives and businesses that reflect their divine blueprint, celebrate their creative genius, and achieve financial flow with feeling well. Welcome to the show, Laurie. That is so magnificent just to talk about everything that you do and everything that you did. I am so honored to have you.
Thank you. And the only thing that you captured it, I would say. And it's been 25 years since I was initiated into, it's probably a little longer than that, into that stewardship. I've been doing this work a lot longer than that, is the truth. And I was a psychotherapist before that. So I don't want to say how many years.
But that's amazing. And just having you say that you worked as a psychotherapist before you did what you do now and what you have been doing for a long time now, that is an interesting aspect to start with. I'm curious because just maybe people who are watching the show, they ask themselves, why did she stop working as a psychotherapist? That is amazing. I just could think of you being in a practice, having amazing clients, doing the psychotherapeutic work. Why did you stop doing that, and why did you transition into what you do now?
It's a great question, and it's a really important question for me in my own journey, because while I was a psychotherapist in private practice, and I was working really on the edges of all sorts of things, because I was always looking for what was the truth and what was possible. Those were my kind of driving forces. And I was also looking for what would fill this space in me, because I felt like everybody else had the answer or the secret, so to speak, but I didn't know what that was. But I knew that there was something. It's like I grew up with that feeling of both sides of self-doubt and also knowing absolutely that there was this bigger picture. And what that led me to was, without the earlier parts of things, when I met my teacher named Dawn, I was at that point where I was still looking. I was working in some amazing ways, doing some incredible work with music and imagery and different psychotherapeutic processes. But when I had a particular experience with her, and it was during an initiation, where I felt something open in me and unlock, and I felt loved, not necessarily by her, but I felt the love within myself for the first time ever that I could remember at that time. It wasn't the first time, but that's a longer piece, and that's my book that's coming out probably next year. But it was that that experience of, oh, I belong, I am loved, and I knew it without a doubt. I knew it without a doubt, and and I never went back. I never went, and if there be a kind of a creeping in of some kind of self-doubt, I could recognize how that felt, but I could feel the difference between what self-doubt felt like, which was so yucky, and what this love felt like, which felt so true. And that started me on a whole other journey. And I realized in this work that I was discovering and learning that you didn't have to work for years to make that kind of shift. And that made me realize that I couldn't continue calling myself a psychotherapist or doing psychotherapy in the way that I had been doing it.
And if I got that right, and I have so many thoughts in my head that just came from what you shared, it was like working as a psychotherapist as this linear, ongoing process. And now what you discovered and experienced sounds like, oh, I am quantum leaping.
That is true. I mean, looking back on that, it was a total quantum leap. And I was pretty out there as a therapist. I was not your traditional, here's what we do and here's how we do it kind of thing. I was working with all sorts of incredible methodology, and I came from, my degree was in humanistic psychology. I was teaching in the transpersonal psychology world. This was still a quantum leap beyond all of that.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And you mentioned doubt or self-doubt, and you said it felt yucky. And I had another thought that I really would love to add, because I just contemplated on this aspect of doubt, because that is a big one for me, and it has been a big one for me. And I just opened up to another idea, and maybe you like that.
Yeah. Go ahead. I love it.
If you already know that you love it.
Well, I love that there's something that just came to you.
Yeah. If doubt or self-doubt was not there in this initial place, you would have stayed the same, because having doubt or self-doubt, but let's say having doubting something makes you investigate and find out more, and makes you like, I want to know more. I'm a seeker. I'm a wisdom seeker. I want to figure it out. And isn't that such a big gift to go from this place of doubt and see it as such a big gift? Because you discover something new. You discover this experience of quantum leaping, and now you can share it with the world. And that is what gave a spin to this word doubt.
Yeah.
I started liking it.
You can either be caught in self-doubt, or you can know, like I always knew that there was something else.
Yeah.
That it wasn't just that. And if it were just that, I don't think we would call it doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. And
that's quite brilliant, my dear.
And I recently read, so self-doubt is a bit tricky, because you could really drown in self-doubt, and then it's best to communicate with someone about what is going on in your head. But if you are a doubtful person, and maybe that is what someone needs to hear right now, then you could even doubt your doubt.
Absolutely. And I doubted anything that came in that ran contrary to the doubt.
Yeah.
Like, this is too good. You know, that kind of thing. Can't really trust that.
Yeah.
But I came into such a place of trust. And I was trusting in that bigger picture, trusting in my own connection, and trusting that we have within us everything already that's needed.
So beautiful. I want to come back to having everything that is needed, and because sometimes it's just said and people say, yeah, you can say that. What does that mean? I can read it everywhere. Yep. But before that, I would really love to share your human design chart, because there are 2 or 3 aspects that I looked at that are really good in connection to what you just said. And I want to share about these aspects. So just talking a little bit about your chart. And I don't remember if you ever had a chart reading before.
I have.
Okay.
Bits and pieces.
Yeah. So just for anyone who is new to human design, or then I want to transition a bit into the Gene Keys, because that is so magnificent in this chart and in every chart. Laurie, you are a generator. That is, you are here to really do the work, to really be an alchemist, so to speak, and become better and masterful at what you do. And you have this power inside of you to really do that, and to really continue your work and discover new things, and just trust that there is something opening up. And then you have those epiphanies and experiences and new insights. And so I think that is really great that you are someone who has the power like generators have. What I want to talk about, and maybe it's a bit of a weird way of looking at the chart, the way I do it in the beginning, before I dive into the facts and the wisdom around human design, I look at it as if it was a painting, like something creative, and every chart looks differently. And so what I saw, the first thing that really popped out was, Laurie has a defined head, a defined crown. That is interesting because there is only a small number of people who have this defined head center, this crown. That is someone who could really be in their head all the time, and there is a lot about intellectual wisdom and abstract wisdom, but also those people are here to inspire others. Those are the great teachers, because you have it inside of you. And what I did next, I looked into this part because that stood out. I just had this interpretation of a painting that was like, oh, and let's see, the head space, this crown center, is connected to the ajna center, which is sort of your computer base, where everything goes in and where you process things so that you can verbalize them or put it out into the world. And so I wanted to look at those channels, and there is channel 6124. That's the middle channel, and it is called the channel of awareness, which means that your mind is capable of inspiring someone else because you see a lot and you can help them see their life in a new light. And I want to already connect it to the other channel, that is the channel of logic. That's 63.4. And this channel is you using your mental gifts in the service of others. So both of them have a similar topic. It's always in service of others. Because in brackets, and that makes so much sense when I just remember what you said, you had this doubt and you couldn't figure things out the way you wanted, so you continued. There is some hardship in figuring out things mentally just for yourself. But you are brilliant in seeing the bigger picture for others, in solution for others, in giving others so much clarity, inspiration, insights. And you are the brain, so to speak, when it comes to being of service for others. And I just thought that is so big to talk about, this aspect in your chart. And it makes so much sense when I connect it to what you shared.
I was very caught in my head for a long, long time. I mean, even though there was all this underneath kind of aspect, it would frustrate my teacher because she was opening me up energetically and, was providing all these experiences. And I always wanted to figure things out. Yeah. It's like, stop trying to figure things out. Or at least go for more than that.
Yeah. And I think seeing this and seeing that there is no good or bad, no right or wrong, being in your head is a gift for others. It could really hinder you from opening up to more, but this is such a great example for your magnificence and for seeing there is always more than one aspect that needs to be read. And I just say that when people say, oh, I hate that I am so doubtful. Oh, I hate that I'm so much in my head. But there is always an aspect that is such a gift. And that's why I wanted to really use you as an example for that magnificence, because you are an amazing teacher, an amazing guide and facilitator for others. You are someone who really can open up people to see themselves in such a different light. Yeah. And there is, I don't want to touch upon that, but there is one aspect in your chart that is even about your physical presence, that you enable people to really have quantum leaps. The only thing is that this could happen spontaneously. And I wonder if you have some experiences, because I know you do retreats, you see people in person, that all of a sudden there is this like really like miraculous quantum leap for your clients, for the people you are in a room with, you work with. That is in your chart. There is this quantum leap aspect that could show up spontaneously.
That's so interesting that you should put it that way. I have not had someone say that way, and it happens all of the time. Partly because what I'm doing in my work, for example, I have a twice weekly Tureya meditation online. It's short. It's the easiest way for people to come into my world, for example. And yet when people do it, they end up staying for sometimes years. I've been doing this for a long time because I'm working with energy during the time of the meditation. So I'm working with each person's system, each person's body. And that's happening no matter what I'm doing. I don't mean that I go into somebody and just say, oh, hey, but I work in such a way that I don't have to put my head in there. I don't have to it's not about control or something. It's really an invitation. And what I keep seeing is the profoundness of how people receive the invitation and the way that change happens and opening happens in such a gentle, amazing kind of way. Sometimes it's like, oh, I got to change my life completely. But it feels right. It has that aspect of, oh, it may not be easy, but there's an ease to it.
I love when you say that. I heard you say that before, that things are not easy, but so for me, there is this picture of there is some flow to it. There is no stagnation.
Yeah. We just had another meeting after the last retreat that happened in Spain with the people that were there. And to hear what's been happening and how it's been happening, remarkable to me, because we really wanted to have that experience, not just be, oh yeah, you just go away, you have a great time, and then you kind of go back into your life. For us, it was about transformation, and it still is. And that was the feedback yesterday, was how that's continuing to unfold. And that's pretty remarkable to me. It's remarkable. I don't want that sense of remarkability to ever go away. I'm always in awe.
That is so beautiful to hear that from you. And again, I think that gives people such a big relief, because it is like an ongoing process. There is no end to it. And your retreat had this ripple effect on the lives of people, and it goes on, and they develop and they grow, and there is yet another aspect, and there is yet another opening, and maybe another quantum leap.
Yes.
And, I think that is so good to know that there is no person on earth that does not want to continue this journey to another goal, to another level, to another aspect they want to embrace or embody or open up to. I think there is always more. And isn't that just enjoying the journey and really loving every moment?
And we may not love every moment. I got sick a couple of weeks ago. I didn't love that.
Yeah.
But I could also look at it and get an experience of what else was going on and why I needed to get quiet. And that I needed to get quiet, and I needed to have much more inside time and rest, because there were a lot of big changes happening for me. And I needed to give myself that space, and I wasn't.
That is interesting, because that brings me back to this question when you said we have it all inside of us. Just talking about you getting sick. you could really rush down the emotional ladder and you go from anger down to really being full of resentment and maybe even more panic, or even more being full of fear because there is something going on in the body. How could you give the audience a little insight into how do you handle that? Because you said we have it all inside, and that's really a tangible example of how does Laurie do that in a magnificent way that is not maybe easy.
You know, the practice, if you will, is one of knowing that when I say each, it's all there inside of us. We don't have to go outside. I mean, we may go to a mentor or a guide to work with us, but it's not to have someone else be the intermediary with what our truth is, or to be the intermediary between you and God, between you and presence. That is there within us. Excuse me. We are energy. The quantum field is energy. Everything is energy, and we're part of it all. So when this all happened and getting sick, it was the practice of going inside and asking, what am I needing to know about this? Things like this. What am I needing to know about this? What's going on? What am I needing to do? Because my one tendency I used to have was to really push through things. And I'll get it done. And I would get it done. But there's a different dimension when you start to soften toward yourself and realize that, there is a bigger picture. So let me start to tune into what that is. What am I needing to do now? And what I realized even as I'm saying this was there was a teaching for me about paying such acute attention, such close attention to what's needed now. What am I needing to do now? Oh, you're needing to rest again. Again, I could say, okay, and surrender to that and allow that and keep listening, keep tuning in to that quieter voice, that quieter knowing. That takes practice, that takes willingness, it takes surrender. Like, okay, if there is this inner guidance, will I listen to it or will I override it? And because I've been doing this for so long, I know when I start to override because something goes off and I don't feel good, and I know that it doesn't really serve me to do that. And I'd rather listen, and I'd rather surrender to what my own guidance is giving me than to take personal will, let that have its way.
I like it a lot. And you just made me tap into a story that is, it's about physical issues. And when you say we have it all inside of us and there is this deep inner knowing and we just need to ask ourselves and become quiet and reflect and contemplate. And I had an issue going on for a long time, and I knew at the core of my being, I knew what this had to do with. But believe it or not, I would always try to convince myself that this is just a physical thing, even though I'm all about energy as well.
And just even though you knew.
Even though I knew. And just recently, I saw this amazing acupuncturist, and we talked about it, and he said, that is so amazing that you totally get that it's energetic and that you have it all inside of you. And then he said, but I wonder why do you need me to reflect that back to you? Because you have been knowing that for 5 years now. And I really needed him, because there is always this element that is like, maybe I don't have it all inside of me. Why should I know everything? So I love that you say, we totally know what's going on with our body. We totally know what is going on in our lives.
Can I put a little nuance to that?
Please.
We don't always know when we're caught up in the outside world, when we're caught in trying to be who we think we're supposed to be, or trying to please someone else, or not wanting to interrupt or disturb, the status quo. So it actually, well, for me in my life, because of how I was oriented, which was very much outside, it took me a long time to start to pay attention. And it's actually, I developed a course a couple of years ago called the Inner Guidance Mastery Blueprint. And it was about it was to teach people how to listen. Because we would think that would be such an easy thing, but it's not. For me, it was one of the hardest things. Yeah. And because it was hard, I got to see all the pieces and the ways that I could show other people. And also provide the energetic experience, because that energetic experience allows people to feel what that's like. Not just to have the processes or the skill set, but to know it from your own feeling body, which I think is essential.
It is essential. And I'd say that our thinking and our emotions really are the most important assets we have. Mm-hmm. But so that's just from my perspective. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I believe that lots of people really have a hard time connecting with their emotions or their feelings or their body or their thoughts. Mm-hmm. And as you said, sometimes I catch myself going into a direction that is not so healthy or not so good for my inner and outer being. And I think that is exactly where we should be headed, because this is awareness about our path and our inner guidance system.
And our inner guidance system, yeah. And for me, I went into a therapist because that seemed like the most natural way of learning about myself and other people, and going into depth. And I needed to learn about my emotional body and about emotions. But then I had to go beyond that, because the inner guidance system isn't caught in emotion either. Like we can go into, I think of truth, and I think of, this may be true emotionally for me, but emotion is still caught in what past experience was.
Yeah.
It's still what's old. And I'm always wanting to, and I don't want to just dig up the past. I want to be in service to what is it I'm needing to create now? And where is that taking me? And what is, not as a way of skipping over something, but as a way of taking what I already have and then taking it bring it into the new frequency, the new vibration, the new, what wants to be created.
That is very interesting, because that is not creating the now and the future just from some past experiences where emotions often get triggered by, but having this fresh sheet of paper and starting something new, or really focusing on what can be created and how do I
what can be.
What can unfold, what can be created.
Because we don't lose any of that, what we had. It's like, if you're somebody that believes in past lives, we don't lose any of that energy. We bring that with us.
Yeah.
And we bring our history with us. It's just that there's more. Yeah. And I use just in there really deliberately, there is more. And it's not to ignore that, because that's what's going to take us forward. And we're here to be creators, I believe.
Every single second.
Every single
we
second.
are creating.
Yeah.
And I just caught myself that I am so into our conversation, because most of the time I share about human design and I share about the gene keys, but I think that is such an important topic that I really want to stress those great thoughts, great ideas, or maybe some pieces of inspiration for someone who is listening. And at the same time, I want to at least once go back to your chart.
Yeah, I'd love to. I don't know anything about gene keys.
And yes, exactly. So you don't see the gene keys, really, you figure out where the gene keys are. But I started like maybe 8-9 months ago, really diving deeper into the gene keys and connecting gene keys to human design. And there are, I don't know if you know anything about gene keys, there are 3 pathways. So it's such an amazing system. It is 3 pathways. The first one is an activation sequence where people can look at 4 spheres that they can activate. It's a more masculine path. And they have a look at the shadow frequency of their spheres, the spheres that their soul chose. So there are altogether, it's 11 spheres. And they can look at the shadow frequency, which is oftentimes fear-based, which oftentimes really dims their light. Because it is, gene keys is at the genetic level of the DNA, and there are those biophotons. I just learned that recently. And when we are in stress, fear, and all those emotions, the DNA and the biophotons are really compressed, and we don't shine our light anymore. And so gene keys help people to start at their maybe shadow expression of one of those aspects and take this shadow not as something that is bad, that we need to get rid of, but as a starting point of their journey in accepting it, embracing it, and then moving into the gift frequency that is really shining their light, having their full expression, and radiating that into the outside world. And so when we look at the human design chart, your human design chart, this first pathway of the genius is expressed in exactly those four numbers. So the 3, the 50, the 60, and the 56. They are all keys, genetic keys or gates in human design, and they have a certain topic. And there is another pathway, that's the love path, that is all about self-love and different phases of love and expressing love and dealing with the biggest wound. And then there is a prosperity path. So I just wanted to look into this expression, this number 3 in the conscious sun. This number 3 gene key is called the way of innovation.
I used to call myself an innovation alchemist.
And that is, this gene key is all about what are you here to do? What is your life's work? That is the starting point of the activation sequence. And for you, number 3 is the way of innovation. When you look into the depth of it, there is a shadow piece that is chaos. And chaos per se is not bad, but we as human beings oftentimes perceive it as bad, as something to get rid of. It's something to put back into order. The gift frequency is innovation, of course. And just talking about that, when you look at chaos, we as human beings, we have this idea that order and that being in a relationship, being in this job, being in this space gives us safety and security, which is just this big illusion, because the big spoiler, excuse me, is death. Because then all the security of this human mind is gone. And for you, this is so important, and maybe you have a story that goes with it. It's all about the nature of change and seeing that there is no safety or security in all those human put in order things like relationships, like job, and so on. And I added some more layers, but I don't want to overcomplicate it. So this illusion of stability is what needs to be looked at. And then when one of our anchor points, for example, a relationship or a job that looks as if it is keeping us safe, is lost, the hidden chaos shows up. So it's not like chaos that you can see in one's life, but it's the undercurrent of chaos.
The inner chaos.
Yes. And the innovation piece, the gift frequency, is embracing change, because everything in the world is change. Everything in the world is spinning. So at the core of every cell, of every being, of everything, there is this whirlwind that is spinning, and it breathes change into our lives. And the out-breath, the exhale, is innovation. Because when your order is questioned, then something new can happen. And so the resolution is being okay with chaos, being like a child, because when I look into my children's room, they are okay with chaos. They are totally okay with chaos. And then it's all about coherent innovation, really being innovative and coherently, just with all of your heart and all of your alignment, innovating something out of this chaos. I don't know how this speaks to you.
Well, I've been speaking about the nature of change for about 30 some years.
I did not know.
So that is something, that yes, and yes. And one of the things that kind of came forward and as I was listening to you was around what happens when we're done a project. We've created something. Okay, then it's not necessarily chaos. It's like the willingness to embrace change, because change is the only constant that there is. It is the only constant. Okay, yep, more change. But that the energy of that change is what fuels the next piece. So being willing to hang out when something's completed, even if it's completed very abruptly, it's like, okay, got to let this go. I've let this go. But now what? Our tendency as humans is to want to fill it. We want to fill that space. We want to make ourselves feel better. It's even to the point of, let's say I'm coming, I feel something in my body and I say, oh, well, I must be getting sick. It's our way of understanding it, but it's not necessarily what's true. It may be that sense of there's something new here and I don't know what it is. So I have to give space for it. And I have to be willing to hang out in the unknown. And I think sometimes people will call the unknown chaos. Because it's not, you don't have a way of orienting yet with what is new. And so I'm always feeling like, okay, well, who am I now? And with that, what is it that I'm to do? What is it I'm needing to do? What's the next step? And that those next steps change all the time. But my work is about helping people learn how to do that, learn how to be willing to do that, learn how to navigate. It's constant navigation.
And I think with your experience, and it just touched me so much. It is so adorable what you say, because it is so aligned with your chart. And whenever this happens, that someone talks about things and just light bulb moments go off for me, because it's like, oh, I could talk about her chart again, and I could really mention this and that, because there is this part in you, and I don't have to share the screen, or I could share the screen just quickly.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me. I mean, this is not a conversation I've had before like this.
Yeah. So there are 2 more channels, and I never talk about all the channels, but this is exactly in alignment with what you say, and that's why it stands out so much. This channel between 25 and 51 is called the channel of initiation. And it leaps into the unknown. And that's what you just said. And that is you, Laurie, you having the spirit of a warrior, walking your path on your own, trusting your inner knowing, trusting your inner guidance system, just relying on who you are and what you experienced, what you know, what you sense, what you feel when you are tuned in and tapped into who you are. You just trust the unknown. And that's this channel. And I was like, whoa, she just touches upon this channel. And that's so...
And that's my work. My work is as an initiator. I mean, at bottom line, the people that I am working with most closely right now are those people who want that level of mastery. And that happens through, or at least one way that happens is through initiation.
Yeah.
And initiation smooths that path or creates that path without having to spend the next 20 years discovering or searching.
Yeah. And listening to you is like music in my ears, because I can hear your immense experience, and I feel the reflection of your amazing, magnificent chart and all the hidden wisdom. There is so much more to talk about when it comes to all the gene key codes and everything. But it is such a reflection. Whenever that happens, I'm so grateful, because this episode is exactly what is needed to show. Yes, she represents her energetic blueprint. She is what I talk about. And there is this great experience that you bring to the table, of course, that everyone who is guided by you or accompanied by you needs to be so glad, so happy, so content, so fulfilled, because they can totally trust. They can totally trust in what you share with them, how you inspire them, how you guide them. Maybe you help them as a catalyst. That's what I just sense.
Yeah, and that's really so beautiful. I mean, it just I'm in awe of how that all comes together, because what you're speaking to is so resonant.
Yeah.
And then it sounds like what I'm speaking to, you go, oh yeah, here is where it shows up.
Yeah. And most of the people that come for guidance, they are oftentimes just aware of a teeny tiny little bit. You are aware of all those aspects, and that makes it such a beautiful conversation, Because you say, yeah, exactly. That is what happened. That is what I'm aware of. That is what I do every day. That is my future. I like that. And you said you are working with people currently. How can people work with you? What do you offer? What different ways are there out for people to work with you?
You can find out about everything on the bacainstitute.com website. That's my website. And I mentioned the twice weekly Tureya meditation. It's a very easy way to, as I said, to come into this whole experience. And it's also a way to regularly have exposure to or experience with this kind of energy and how that is working for you in your own life. And then there is the couple of courses that I work with, that I have, and I teach Tureya touch and Tureya meditation as well. I mean, the other ways of teaching Tureya meditation, and Tureya touch is a hands-on way of working with the energy, and so it is another way that people come. But that's live. That's got to be wherever I am. And I do travel around and teach. I do retreats, as we mentioned earlier. I have the Inspiration into Action, which is a weekend intensive, but it's online. Now, it's been online for the last couple of years. And then this Mastery program. There's a few other things too, but the Mastery program is the one that I am most excited about right now because I'm really working with the people who are out there working with others, and really want to take that big step in their lives. And there's not a lot I'm going to say about what that is because it's also unique to each person. Yeah. What gets shared, what gets transmitted, and the way in which they're brought forward.
And that is so beautifully said because you are not someone who is looking for a cookie cutter approach. Just apply this methodology and you will get there. It is so tailored. That is what it sounds to me, tailored, and everyone has a different outcome, exactly the outcome that they need.
Yes.
Yes. Wonderful. Just to wrap our beautiful conversation up, is there anything that comes to your mind? So we had so many golden nuggets in this conversation, but anything that comes up, maybe a thought, an experience, a quote, a tip, anything that you feel needs to be shared exactly now?
I'm checking because my voice just kind of closed up around whatever I was going to say. And yeah, I am still to share it when that's from the illusion of separation, the illusion of being separate, and the truth, and I really am using that word deliberately, of being connected. It's like the remembrance of who we really are, the remembrance of our own connection, of our own being loved, being a part of the whole fabric, not outside of it.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Let's soak that in. Dear Laurie, it was such a pleasure, such an honor to have this conversation with you. And it was just surface level because I think we could talk for hours and hours and hours, maybe days or weeks. But just to keep it in this frame,
right?
We need to come to a close, and I would love to thank you again for being my guest, for sharing your stories, your insights, your beautiful impulses with me and my listeners. And yeah, just thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for guiding us on such a journey today. I really feel like it has been that. It has been a journey.
Yeah. You're so welcome. And all I would love to say in the end of every episode, thank you so much for listening or watching another episode of Magnificence, the one and only empowerment podcast that strikes a match and shines the light on the magnificence of my guests and, of course, on your magnificence. And should you want to dive deeper into your magnificence, don't hesitate and reach out. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us for this empowering episode. To continue this journey of aligning with your true purpose and uncovering your magnificence, schedule an illumination call with Patricia at patricialindner.com. Please share this episode with someone who needs it and subscribe to the show on YouTube and your favorite podcasting platform. Join us again soon for another episode of Magnificence.